Help protect us from racism and xenophobia by becoming an I Love Black People ambassador today. Join on iloveblackpeople.com. No matter where you are in the world, join us today and get access to the I Love Black People network. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.
Greetings, amazing, dynamic, wonderful, I Love Black People listeners. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your constant feedback. We're always taking your suggestions and your insight. We're definitely blessed. I think one of the things that we do in the tech space startup world, we always talk about how the early folks, they call them early adopters, that adopt a particular tech or application. The most powerful thing is your feedback, and this is a two-way street. Even though it's recorded, but the time that y'all take to engage us on our email, info at iloveblackpeople.com, as well as some of the DMs y'all send on our social media, on Instagram and Twitter. These are things that are very helpful to us because, again, I am because we are. And when we say that, that means that we're part of a collective, a family. And even when we talk about Pan-Africanism, and some Black folks say they're not African, they say they indigenous, some folks are Moors, whatever we call each other, and we definitely want to be respectful and call people what they want to be called. We're part of a family, and that family doesn't always agree. That family doesn't always have the same idea. We're so diverse in our ideas, which is a strength, not a weakness. And the fact that we've come through so much, and we still have the ability to have independent thought and to make our own analysis. That's the win, and our ability to collaborate. Those are the things that we spend our efforts on at I Love Black People, and as a radio station, a radio show, as well as a tech startup. When you see the brand I Love Black People, we want people to see that as a affirmation, something that says that we're worth loving, and we are deliberate with our love. And it's important that that love actually manifests something that's demonstrative and tangible. And we see that as our mission with I Love Black People, is to use this collectiveness, this Black unity, this Pan-African unity, to create a global safety net that will make sure that we're protected from racism and Afrophobia. We don't see the value being placed on how much money you have, or your financial literacy, or generational wealth. All those things are great, you know. But even if you're not a capitalist, suppose you're a socialist, and I'm a more socialist leaning person, it's one of those things where no matter how much money you have in your pocket, you're priceless. And how do we create that level of awareness and actionable uh, directions in how we achieve that global safety net? We as engineers, we as a tech startup, are leveraging crowdsourcing to do so. And that crowdsourcing is from our listeners to the radio show, and folks who download our app. And our app's in the Apple Store, but and then the Google Play. But the focus is bigger than the app. It's actually us as people coming together to say that we're valuable, we're amazing, and we want to make sure we protect our children. There's no place in the world where our children, our people should go where they should be harmed or humiliated because of Afrophobia or racism. And we take that very serious. And we do it in a way where we're not asking anyone to quit their job or go on to a protest and stand in the middle of a street. We're saying that we're coming together and bringing together tools that you can actually use in your everyday life to be supportive of a global safety net to protect us from this racism and Afrophobia. And for those who don't know, Afrophobia is the irrational fear or hatred of people perceived to be of African descent. So we made sure when we talk about this that that perception, you can call yourself a Moor, but they may perceive you as being African descent, and they still give you problems. You could be somebody who's foundational, and these hateful people will perceive irrationally perceive you as all kinds of things, and we want to make sure, no matter, like I said, how we call ourselves, that we're not going to be harmed by anyone. And the unity we talk about is not about everybody agreeing. You don't have to call yourself African. You don't have to call yourself Black. You don't have to do any of those things. But what we do say is, no matter what you do, you shouldn't experience that Afrophobia. You shouldn't experience the harm and humiliation of racism. And this is a call to action for those who are interested in doing something to do about it. And downloading the app is a tool. Being a part of our community is a method where we literally, through this unity, leverage tools, digital tools that make it so it's so scalable anywhere in the world for the first time in history, where we can actually do that. And these tools are built by Pan Africanists. Like, literally, our lead developer is based in Kenya. My co-founder is based in Zimbabwe, and that we're based in the Dominican Republic, Zimbabwe, and Washington, D.C. I tell people we weren't cursed to live in one place. We can live anywhere. So, again, when people say go back to Africa, African people were the first to circumnavigate in the world. We're global. I definitely do find more satisfaction in many ways being in Zimbabwe. But again, as a people, we're not limited in time and space. We can do all these things, and it's up to your willingness to put into work, and us collectively using all our resources to make sure that the path is clear for our folks to be able to move about. I mean, when we talk about colonialism and oppression, the first thing that's been denied is our ability to move. And dealing with issues like visas and things, as U.S. citizens, again, a settler colony started by Europeans, literally off the, again, the work and labor of African people and indigenous people, that privilege is not afforded to the whole world. And again, why should somebody in another country not have, if they have the money to pay for their plane ticket, pay for the hotel stay, there's no reason in the world they shouldn't be able to travel where they want to go. Like, again, even when, as U.S. citizens, there's limitations how long you can stay without getting some type of additional visitors permit or work permit. But people in other countries outside the United States are limited, and they go to the U.S. Embassy. And the U.S. Embassy, again, most of us don't have family and friends that work at U.S. embassies in these countries. And remember, most of these folks who are at these embassies are the same folks that give us a hard time in the United States. And of course, when it comes to our people wanting to travel, uh, they're not able to travel on the airplane. So it's important that we look at this as the opportunity that we have to be a part of something greater by actually making the time and energy to be helpful to not just ourselves, but to brothers and sisters in other places that may not have the same access or opportunity. So, with that being said, we are able to connect in a global way no matter where we are in the world. So we're not waiting on people to get on airplanes or even for countries to change their visa policies. We can collectively get together digitally or online, virtually, and actually build the systems and build the one Africa, or build this safety net across all these borders, which are all fictional. Again, I've said it many times. There's 54 countries in Africa, and none of their borders were decided by African people. They were decided by colonizers. So we don't respect the borders as it relates to that. We respect our community no matter where they are. Even when we talk about our cities, Washington, D.C., for many, many years, for decades, it was called Chocolate City. And many of our people left, but they didn't leave from D.C. to go to Idaho or Wyoming or someplace far away, most of them left and still are in the area of DC. So even the boundaries that determine the difference between Maryland, DC, the city, the different counties. Again, we understand the political jurisdictions, but we still can work collectively across all those borders in ways that are effective. And again, that's not saying that gentrification is not a problem, but it is saying that we don't have to be limited to where we are and where we live to work together collectively to solve our problems. And I think one of the things that we often find in organizing with I Love Black People, that's in in North America or in Africa, is oftentimes the people will say, well, what about the president, or what about the mayor, or what about my prime minister? And what we say is that I think accountability is important for politicians, but accountability starts with ourselves. At the end of the day, the only person we control is ourselves. So it's very important that when we're talking about what we're going to do next, that we start with ourselves. And with I Love Black People, the power of this, Black unity, the power of this Pan African unity is how we can coordinate our activities with each other to actually make the things happen that we desire with our common agenda. And so our mission is to protect each other. So those folks who are interested in that, we say, come on, let's do it. Those folks who are interested in complaining about politicians, this movement is not for you, because we don't have time to complain about politicians and politics. And again, that doesn't mean like we definitely encourage everyone to civically participate at all levels. But to get into arguments about which political party or who we like, loving a politician and hating a politician is not a political strategy. When we talk about loyalty, people often talk about loyalty to parties. And again, there's nothing wrong with being a part of a party, but you don't have to be a Pan Africanist in, in being a party. You can be without a party still. So when we talk about organizing, we're not asking, or even that's not a part of our conversation, what party you're in. If you're committed to making sure our people are safe and not being harmed or humiliated, that's enough. If you see that we're a part of a greater family, that's all that's needed. So whatever you party you're in, that's your personal business. What we're here to do is work collectively for a common goal, and that common goal is protecting each other from racism and Afrophobia. So again, I've seen some Pan Africanists in their organizing attack political leaders, again, you attack political leaders, you're now taking your energy and actually going down a particular road where there's consequences that may not be ultimately helpful for the organizing that you're doing. No matter who the president is, no matter who, there's going to be elections every whatever years there are. You're going to agree or disagree with some of them, and there's always going to be somebody who likes them. So for us to make that um, the determinant of what we're going to do, that's why it's a flawed approach. Because again, you might vote for somebody and they don't win. Now, what do you do then? You still need to organize, right? And you vote for somebody and they win. You still got to organize. And if that politician ends up double crossing and not doing what they say, what do you got to do? You still got to organize. And Kwame Ture said that, like, we got to organize, organize, organize. And even in that organization and in that organizing, we may not be successful with a particular objective or campaign, but we dust ourselves off and we go back at it with a new idea. There's nothing wrong with failure. There's definitely something wrong with giving up or not getting started. So for us, it's really about leveraging the brilliant minds of our people to help us crowdsource these Black friendly, these Pan African places where our people are treated with dignity and respect. And those are the things that we see as being the foundation. And even when people talk about if there really is some extreme capitalists, your resources go further when you're safe and secure. So talking about, a, a, a Black Wall Street, when we understand when the first commodities sold in the original Wall Street, but definitely black people, unfortunately, enslaved African people. Um, our thought is that security is everything. Tulsa, Oklahoma, black folks had a tremendous amount of wealth and they were burnt out. So again, our security and safety should be our paramount. You know, that's again, even when we were sold into captivity, and again, it was African folks who participated in that selling. You know, who was there to protect somebody's cousin from getting becoming a part of the transatlantic slave trade? We have to protect ourselves. We have to protect each other, and that's got to be the paramount thing. If it's about money, you know, you might sell somebody if the price is right. So those are things that I think we should consider now when we're talking about the organizing. Our purpose is not about focusing on the wealth, but the fact that we are deserving and we're priceless. So, the part of this that we think is important is then how do we manifest? How do we make this happen? So, the first step, again, is literally we're identifying folks who see this as a problem. We're not trying to convince somebody. If you don't think Black folks' lives are worth protecting, then we're not trying to convince that person. We're really looking for the early adopters. That's the people who already are like, yeah, hey, I'm looking for ways to make a difference. I may not want to protest. I may not want to run for office. I may not want to join a bunch of organizations. But if I can come up with a way to contribute to my community to help make it safer, sign me up. And that's why we use the app as a tool to do that, where you can literally use it to recommend these places that will treat us with the dignity and respect that we deserve. And that's why we picked 8 key categories. We picked categories like education, childcare. You know, you don't want racist folks dealing with your children. Healthcare. You know, you don't want a doctor that's racist. Uh, legal. You don't want you don't want a lawyer who thinks you're guilty because they're racist. So these are like some of the areas that we see that are critical in building this unified collective. And we think that once we build that, it's something that allows us to sustain, uh, even if things don't go well for you. We need a way to make sure that we have a safety net for you. And I've been bankrupt. When things don't go well, you need a safety net. I was blessed. I went to Tuskegee University. I went to Howard University. I remember organizations where people cared about me and it didn't matter how much money I had in my pocket because I was dead broke. They didn't say, "Oh, this is generational wealth." No, they said, "Sinclair, you mean a lot to us as a person and we want to help you and get you back on track." And that is what made a difference. And we create something globally like that, where we have folks who really are concerned about our well-being, that's transformational. And that's the foundation of what I Love Black People is about. When we talk about this unity coming together, it's not about making everybody think the same thing. It's about everybody doing a little bit to help create a safer place for us to move about, so we don't have to be in fear. That's in fear of somebody black harming you, fear of the police harming you, fear of any of those things. All that impacts and stresses out. Like, we've been through trauma as a people and we don't talk about it, but that trauma is real. I'm a Gen Xer. I always talk about that. Like, we've been through AIDS, crack cocaine, a number of wars, the great recessions, and COVID. We got to our 50s and we thought this thing was over. We were about to put our hands up like the victory lap, and they was, you know, Nipsey Hussle said it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, because even after all the things that we've been through, next thing you know, they came out with this thing called COVID, and it targeted older brothers and sisters that were a little overweight. Like, it was like, wow, how much can we take? And I think what the thing is, even in those situations, a lot of it was about how could we come together as community. And in those days, we couldn't physically see each other. And I know we all have friends and relatives that passed away, and they had Zoom funerals. Like, think about that. Like, you couldn't physically. I have a big frat brother, a few frat brothers and family members that passed away, and we couldn't say goodbye properly. And I think what that made us, many of us, say is that we need to say hello properly. Okay. We need to actually reach out and stay connected properly. So when it gets to the point where we say goodbye, we say farewell in a way that, speaks to a life worth living, as opposed to, loss and missing someone because you feel personally that you didn't do everything you could. And I think one of the things that we saw that was important is that the activities that we talked about in some of these eulogies, we shouldn't wait for the eulogy to talk about how amazing a person is. We shouldn't wait for eulogies to think about all the amazing things we could have, should have done with people. So again, this whole purpose of I Love Black People is literally for us to figure out ways, leveraging technology and our collective interest to be together, Black unity, African Pan Africanism. How do we leverage all those things and all the people who love to work with us to create something that makes us safer, where again we can fail and still be okay? And I think that's one of the things that's missing, is that when you fail, people don't want to talk about that. But failure is a part of the process. And your ability to get up oftentimes has something to do with the environment you fall down in. And we can create a environment that's conducive for brothers and sisters to get back up. Is better for everybody. And again, I'm not trying to be a loser or give participation trophies. I'm just saying life, it can be hard. Like, just don't ever, I never underestimate uh how hard life is. No matter how good or bad things are, I try to stay grateful. And I look, I wasn't necessarily born with gratitude, but I'm saying that that's the space I try to live in, because no matter how things are, I want to be grateful, grateful for all the opportunities and all the wonderful people and things that have happened. Staying grateful is a good way to be, so that you can give yourself another chance to get back up if you fall. So, with that being said, again, I Love Black People is a real opportunity for all of us to become a part of. And again, we have a big campaign that we're doing on the continent of Africa to make sure that this one Africa comes together. And I think it was, and I brought this up before, Marcus Garvey was, until we make sure Africa is respected, Africans all over the world won't be respected. So we got to make sure that we are focused on how we can also help on the continent and organize. So we're doing the Pan African Unity campaigns around our 8 key categories of people activity, saying that, look, we can create our own one Africa that goes across these borders by connecting with Pan Africanists and Pan African businesses and places, so that we can create the systems that a one Africa would want. What would be a one Africa, one country, one state, one place together? Well, of course, we want to have a school system, a Pan African school system, connecting our brothers and sisters. We can do that. Connecting healthcare, making sure that no matter where our brothers and sisters from, what tribe, what ethnic group, that they'll be treated with dignity and respect. Making sure legally, like we talk about the laws that separate us, making sure we have the legal teams across these borders that know how to make sure that we're respected and we're able to do the things we need to do to move about as human beings. And that's just an example of the work we can do without having to wait for the politics of electoral politics or legislation. These are the things that we can do for ourselves. And I think until we've exhausted the things that we can do for ourselves, I'm not going to put another person's name in my mouth until I've exhausted everything I can do to help make a difference. And that's the vantage point or view that we approach I Love Black People with. That it's important that we see ourselves as a part of the solution. Doesn't matter if you have a degree, if you have any education, or if you have any money in your pocket, you are a part of the solution. And that commitment and being able to contribute, the most precious resource we have is our time. So again, all these other things that people focus on, that's what's key to us. And we also say that it's not even about trying to get so many people It's really about getting quality of people. At the end of the day, it's not, I think some of this social media stuff has got people so focused on followers. But if you think about it, we've seen some really amazing people with all kinds of followers fall and have problems. And all those followers don't seem like they're willing to be helpful. So I think it's not even about the number of followers, it's the quality of people that you work with. And I think all of us have the ability to lead ourselves and work together in a coordinated way, that focusing on who's following you may not be as important as is identifying folks who are willing to step up and lead and step up and support you. So and join us on this trip and this journey, that you again give us the feedback that I talked about in the beginning of the show. Like that's everything to us. We want to know how we can be better, and giving us this feedback actually does that, and is priceless, because your brain is amazing. Your brains are amazing. So with that being said, make sure you again check us out on all social media, our website iloveblackpeople.com. Download the app. We have a Saturday call. Make sure you come and learn about the work we're doing every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time in the United States. Make sure you join us on Zoom or on Facebook Live. We're actually talking about the work we're doing. We have our speakers and our members from all over the world participating. And as I always sign off, I am because we are. Thank you.
Help protect us from racism and xenophobia by becoming an I Love Black People ambassador today. Join on iloveblackpeople.com. No matter where you are in the world, join us today and get access to the I Love Black People network. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.